Hello, it's Emily. Welcome back to my channel, and today I am filming my June reading wrap-up. This is probably the best reading month I've had in a while. Part of the reason was because I was competing in a month-long readathon hosted by Maddie over at the book browsing blog with the Whatever You Want-a-thon. So me being my highly competitive self, I was reading books left and right to try to help rack up points for my team, which was epic and high. And overall, I did read 34 books this month. 8 of them I read physically, 7 I listened to on audio, and then the remaining 19 were either mangas or graphic novels. And my original goal was just to read 6 because I wasn't sure if I was going to read all that I needed to or not. So I just chose 6 because that's usually what I set myself as a goal each month, is just to try to at least get 6 read. So I went way above and beyond that. And overall, page count wise, I read 11,537 pages this month. And I earned 15,175 points for my team. So I reached DD-hood based on the point system. So hopefully we win, but we'll see once all the tallies are totaled and stuff. But I guess I'm going to go on and show you what I read and what I thought of each of these books. So stay tuned and we're going to get right on into it. So the first book I read to kind of kickstart this month was Heartstopper, Volume 4. And this is a LGBT contemporary following Nick and Charlie, who are 2 high school boys who are dating. And I really love how cute the story is, but I also love how it deals with real world issues. Like in this, we tackled a possible eating disorder and anxiety disorder. So we had some great mental health rep here, and I love that there's a wide range of diversity among the characters too. And overall, I gave this book 5 stars, and I'm excited for the 5th volume to be released. So the next book I read was one of my required reads for the month based off of my TBR game. It's what I had to read when I drew a queen, and that's Madame Bovary. And unfortunately, I only gave this 2 stars. I ended up listening to this on audio, and I honestly just found Madame Bovary to be very childish and immature, especially with how she dealt with things, and the way she dealt with things ended up with her dying. But I just didn't like the character, didn't care much for the story, and kind of felt like it was a chore to get through, so this was just a 2-star read for me. The next book I picked up was a reread for me, and that was the 4th volume of Yona of the Dawn. This is following Yona as she's on the quest to locate the 4 dragons and take back her kingdom after her father is brutally murdered by someone close to her. I really enjoy this story. I love the art, love the characters. There's a few chuckles along the way with the writing style. This was a 5-star read for me, and a book that never gets old rereading. So the next book I picked up because it was on the list of host faves. So I try to pick several books from that list I haven't read yet to try. And I chose this one because it's a graphic novel, and those are always quick to read. And that is Saga Volume 1. I absolutely love the story and actually ended up reading even more volumes throughout the rest of the month. But this was a 5-star read for me, and I'm glad that I discovered this series because I'm really enjoying it. The next book I picked up was another one of the books on the host faves list. And it's a middle grade, and I don't typically read middle grades, but I really did enjoy this one. And this was Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. And basically, this is a story following this girl named Min Lee and her quest to better the fortune of her family. And along the way, we see how she meets several interesting characters and stuff. And it's really just a nice journey with some nice life lessons thrown in as you read. So a really enjoyable read, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And also a plus of this is there are like really beautiful illustrations in the book. Let me see if I can find a page with one of the illustrations. Like here we have like really beautiful artwork and stuff. So really made the story even better with all this lovely artwork here. The next book I completed, I was a little leery on reading it after drawing it in my TBR game because it was such a massive chunker. However, it was really worth the read, and that is The Modern Fairy Tales by Holly Black, which is all 3 of her short stories tied into one large book. And I really did enjoy this. I ended up giving this 4 stars. And I did not find myself bored throughout the whole reading. It was very fast-paced, entertaining, and a very enjoyable read. The next book I read was another graphic novel, and it was by one of my favorite authors, Victoria Schwab, and that is Night of Knives. And this is basically the prequel series that leads up to the events that happened before Shades of Magic, where we follow the then Prince Maxim and his journeys. So very interesting. Ended up giving this one 4 stars, and makes me even more excited that she's continuing on with the Shades of Magic series with another book coming out. I believe it's 22 or 23. I don't know. It's in the process of being written, but I'm definitely buying it as soon as it's released. This next book I read was a bit surprising because it's something I kind of just discovered scrolling through Amazon, and came across this book and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And that is Lesser Known Monsters by Rory Michelson. This is a dark queer fantasy following Oscar and his friends as they go about trying to stop the end of the world. I really love the characters and the quirkiness within this writing, and I believe there's going to be a second book, so I'm going to keep my eyes out for a release date on that because I'm really interested to see how the series continues on, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So this next one was me continuing on with the recently started series, and it was another 5-star read for me, and that's the 2nd volume of Saga, and I really just am enjoying the series as a whole, as I mentioned earlier, and love the artwork. Next book I read is a classic, but I really adore it, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I've read this story once before. I believe I read it last year or the year before. I can't quite remember, but ended up rereading this. Still loved it just as much the second time around, and ended up giving this book another 4 stars. The next book I read was another book that was featured on the Host Faves list, and it's a series I've been reading for a while now, and that is I Hear the Sunspot Limit 3. I really did enjoy the story and thought it had a great conclusion. However, one of my caveats is I wish there was a little tad bit more romance and less miscommunication. But maybe we'll see more romance if the author does decide to continue on with the series. And this was a 4-star read for me. Next book I completed was another manga. And it's also a series I've been reading for quite a while. What brought me into reading the series was I saw the anime. Really loved the anime, but however, the anime only ended up with 1 season and they never picked it back up. So I wanted to see how the story continued where it left off, which is why I picked it up and started reading the manga. And that is the 10th volume of Carnival. This was, I believe, a 4-star read for me. Sorry, I'm losing track of how many stars each book's worth. I read so many, but really enjoy the reading. The artwork is really beautiful, and excited to see what comes in the next volume because we're getting a lot of backstory. Not going to reveal too much because what I will reveal will kind of take away the mystery from if you haven't read it yet from the beginning. But in this book, we're receiving a lot of backstory from a certain character, which is kind of setting it up on how this other character came to be. I know it's kind of confusing the way it's worded, but if you read the series, you kind of get what I'm saying here, but I just don't want to give it away. But really great book, and excited to continue on. So the next book I read was another reread, another series continuation, and that's the 5th volume of Yona of the Dawn. Again, enjoying the progression of the story, love the artwork, 5 stars. The next book I read was actually something I listened to on audio, and that's Don't Call the Wolf. And basically, this is a story following Ren, who was raised by lynxes, and Lucas, who is this like wolf warrior. And they end up teaming up to join forces after Ren rescues him from the woods. And Ren wants him to slay the dragon, and she'll help him find his missing brother if he slays the dragon for her. This was an okay read. I just felt I kind of zoned out in places. I think it's just because it's really tropey YA and not something I really read much of anymore because I feel like I've outgrown the genre. However, I did give this 3 stars, and it was a nice, cute read, but probably not something I would read again. So the next book I read was a book I've been putting off reading for a lot of reasons. One was because I was very hyped up on this book as a whole, series as a whole. Too, it was the last book and I didn't want the series to end. And so the only reason I guess I really was motivated to finally pick it up this month was because it was on the host faves list, and that is Crownbreaker, which is the final volume of the Spellslinger series. And I'm glad I did pick this up because this was a 5-star read for me. It really did a great job of wrapping up the story as a whole. And I am very satisfied with this ending and what happened with all the characters. It didn't leave me disappointed like I was fearing it was going to, which is one of the reasons why I waited so long to pick it up. But 5-star read, and I would definitely recommend checking this series out if you haven't yet. So the next book is another reread and series continuation, and that's the 6th volume of Yona of the Dawn. This was another 5-star read, and hopefully I can catch up rereading the whole series once again. Okay, now that I got one sack down, I'm moving on to my next sack of books. And the next one I did read was Estranged, which was a middle grade graphic novel that I believe I gave 4 stars. And this is following a changeling and his human counterpart who are switched. And when Land of Fairy is attacked, the human ends up going back to the real world to locate the changeling to come and help him save Fairy and rescue his family and all that, because he's like lost his kingdom and everything. And I thought this was a really cute story. Love the artwork. It's something that I kind of just come across just scrolling through in one of my shopping moods, and I was like, this looks pretty, and the art's really gorgeous and stuff. And overall, I believe this was a 4-star read, but I am excited to pick up the next book, because I believe there is a sequel, and I want to check that out. So the next book I read, we're keeping on with the trend of rereads, and that's Yona of the Dawn Volume 7, 5 stars, enjoyed it, and I'm going to still continue rereading. So the next book I read is a series I've really been enjoying, though it's taken me a while to get through it because they are big chunkers, and that is The Broken Eye by Brent Weeks, which is the 3rd book in the Lightbringer series. So I'm halfway through. I got 2 books left and then the series will be over. But I really am enjoying the world building here. I love the magic system, like the way different colors of light are used for different types of magic and stuff, and also based on what type of light you draft helps kind of determine your personalities and stuff. So I really find that interesting as a concept. Also, Kip is probably one of my favorite characters. I love the whole underdog building his way up type of trope. So I'm really loving this, and can't wait to pick up the next book, even though they are chunkers. I mean, this, like, it's heavy. It's like, I believe it's over 800 pages, but it's worth the read. Like, this whole series as a whole is worth the read, and I do recommend you guys check this series out because you will love it too, especially if you love great high fantasies with amazing magic systems. So the next book I read was actually one of my poll picks. I posted this poll on my Instagram and Facebook where I asked people to pick between 3 books, and of course this one won probably because it's the more well-known of the 3 because of the authors. However, it is slightly out of my comfort zone because I don't read much contemporary romance, and that is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. And I think this was a nice break because I had been reading a lot of heavy hardcore fantasy, so I was starting to burn out a bit because processing a lot of political fantasy and stuff does kind of wear you out because you have to, think a lot. So I was like, let me, pick this up, put this on my poll because it's a romance. I don't gotta think much. I can just read. Hopefully there's some like nice steamy scenes. So end up reading this. Found it enjoyable. Gave it 3 stars because some of the stuff was a little predictable and stuff. But I mean, I do typically rate contemporaries and stuff a lot harsher when they're based in the real world, just because I found myself rolling my eyes on a lot of stuff happening, and I guess I'm just not much of a romance person, so that's why it only got 3 stars. Though it's a cute read, and if you love the romance genre, you'll probably enjoy this a lot more than I did. But I really love how bright the cover is, and I did enjoy the 2 main characters in this book and their story, how they came together and all that. The next book I read was another book on the bookish host faves list. Also, it was one of my poll picks that came in second place, but I still really wanted to read it, so I ended up reading it anyways, even though it didn't win. And that is Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. I've already read one of his prior works this month with Crownbreaker, and I've had this series on my shelf for a while now. I just haven't quite picked it up because I was wanting to finish Crownbreaker first before starting a new series of his, so I wasn't trying to, juggle two different series. So I finally got the chance to start this one up. Really enjoyed the story, and I'm excited to see what else happens. This was a 5-star read for me. So the next book I read was a slight disappointment for me. It's actually a book I tried reading when I first got it last year, but ended up putting it back on my shelf because I just was struggling to get through it. But I decided to give it a second chance to go around and just barrel through it and try to complete it. And I really hate that I did not love this book as the two prior books I read by this author, and that is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I ended up unfortunately only giving this book 3 stars. Honestly, I didn't like the narrator. I just didn't like her tone and stuff and the way stuff was described. I think that's really why I struggled so much with this book, is I did not like the main character, and because I could not stand the main character, it just made it that much harder to get through this story. So I'm debating if I'm going to actually pick up the second book when it's published or not. I'm still kind of up in the air of that because I really didn't care much for this one, so I don't really know if I want to continue on reading the series. So I might hold on to this and see, but as of right now, it looks like I probably will be unhauling this book. But I do hope I do enjoy more of her other books when she does publish more books, because I loved her 2 fairy tale retelling and Spinning Silver, and I believe it's Rooted, Unrooted, it's been a while since I read her books, and I don't have the physical copies to reference with me because I packed up everything for the move. But yeah, so unfortunately this was just a bust for me. The next book is another book series that's on the Bookish Faves list. Also, it's another series continuation because I really was loving the series, so I kept reading more, and that's Saga Volume 3, 5-star read, and really loved the pace the story was taking off out here and what was setting up to come next. Sorry if I'm starting to sound really congested. My allergies have been killing me, and they get worse when I sit down, so I'm trying not to sniffle too much on here. It's just getting very difficult to film. But continuing on, the next book I read was another manga, and it was a 3-in-1 edition of Bleach, where I picked up volumes 34 through 36. So, and I really did enjoy it. We're still in the Waco Mundo arc, so we're going through all those battles right now down there. And really enjoying the fights and stuff, and gave this I believe it was 4 stars. Sorry, I gotta double check because, yes, 4 stars. Sorry, I remember one I gave less than the others, but this one I did give 4 stars, and really enjoying the story and excited to see what happens next. So the next book was unfortunately a chore for me to read. I adored the first book in the series. Second one started strong and went downhill, and the third one just didn't go back uphill from where it went downhill. I just was determined to finish the series. I just hate that I did not like the series because the covers are so beautiful, because I got the UK covers. And that is Dark Dawn by Jay Kristoff. Unfortunately, this was only a 3-star read for me, and definitely won't reread them. I probably will end up keeping the books. I love the cover so much, even though I won't reread the series. But they're so pretty, so I don't want to unhaul them because I love how pretty the covers are. But anyways, unfortunately, this was a miss for me, and I just did not like the way the series ended, or like what happened. I just didn't care. The next book I read, I continued on with Bleach, and I read the next 3-in-1 edition, including volumes 37 through 39. So I love how the it started out because we got a lot of backstory from some very interesting characters. However, the middle and the ends kind of started tapering off. So I only gave this one 3 stars. I think I didn't enjoy it as much because the next volume is where the big battle happens that I was really excited to see. So this one I was kind of like, come on, let's get to it. I'm tired of watching all these side characters. I want to get back to the main characters. So that's why, unfortunately, this was only a 3-star read, though I still do love the series. So the next book I read is continuing on with the Bleach 3-in-1s, and that's volumes 40 through 42. I really did love this volume. However, I could not quite give it 5 stars. There's a reason. I love the big battle that was happening in Hueco Mundo. However, when we went back to, you know, the other characters, some of the characters I really enjoy seeing their battles, and some of them I just didn't care to watch. I don't care for these characters, so I don't really want to keep reading them. So I just kind of felt myself living through, like, come on, let's get back to the interesting stuff. And that's why I unfortunately had to dock a star and only give this one 4 stars. Though I still am planning on continuing on with the series. However, we've reached a point in the story where it's focusing more on the side characters instead of the main characters. And I'm hoping the main characters will come back pretty quickly because I'm getting a little bored. But we'll continue reading on, because I want to keep reading on and catch up to where the anime ended and continue reading further to complete the series. So I do know the series, there are rumors it's gone down, it goes downhill the farther you read in. So I guess I will take that with a grain of salt and cautiously keep on reading to see what to expect. The next book was another reread for me, and I loved and adored it the first time. This is one of my favorite authors, and round 2 was just as amazing and great, and that's T.J. Klune's The House in the Cerulean Sea. Really beautiful story. Loved, like, characters. They hold a special place in my heart, and really love the writing style here, and probably will end up rereading this 50 billion more times because I just love the story so much. Also makes me really excited for his new book that's set to be released in the fall, and also the sequel to The Extraordinaries that is being released. I believe it's coming soon. I pre-ordered it, so it should be here any day now, but really love the story and definitely recommend it to everybody. So the next book I read this month was actually a book that I included in my poll picks. However, this book came in last, probably because it's a new release and not many people have heard about it or read it yet. And it's a book I kind of came across. I was just scrolling through on the new releases this year, and this kind of popped up. I'm like, I saw the cover. I was like, this is a really gorgeous cover, and it really looks interesting. And that's In Deeper Water by F.T. Lukens. So In Deeper Waters is following Tal on his coming of age tour, and on this tour he ends up coming across this mysterious boy who turns out to be a mermaid. And so there's this big adventure, kidnapping, a rescue to save the kingdom, all that. Really enjoyed the read. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I ended up docking a point because I felt like in certain places the world building was a little weak, especially with how easily all the political stuff wrapped up. I felt like it could have been drawn out a bit further, but because this is why I guess that's why they wrapped up the political stuff a lot quicker than what you would normally see in an adult fantasy with a lot of political maneuvering going around. But I still enjoyed it, and thought it was a cute read, and loved the romance and thought between the 2 characters. So the next book I read is actually a series I've really been enjoying reading, and that's Spy Times Family, and I ended up reading the 5th volume. Really love the story arcs here and what's happening. It looks like we're going to have a new character introduced based on what was revealed at the end, so I'm kind of excited to see how this new character comes into play, especially as a potential love rival. This was a 5-star read, and I can't wait for volume 6 to come out. Next book was another 5-star reread for me, and that's the 8th volume of Yona of the Dawn. Really enjoyed the story, and I'm excited to continue on with rereading and rediscovering everything that I've read through the first time and kind of picking up on these hints that were thrown in compared to the place where I left off in this story. Next book I ended up reading was a book I've kind of had on my shelf for quite a while, and part of the reason is because it is a collection of short stories, which is not something I typically read. However, I really do love this universe and the writing style of the author, and that is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. And basically this is kind of like a series of fairy tales set in the Grishaverse, where we kind of get stories from each different region within the Grishaverse and kind of the myths behind those stories and stuff. And what I saw a lot in this book was a lot of parallels between our own fairy tales, and they were kind of twisted with like a Grisha twist and all that. So it was kind of interesting to read. However, I gave this book 4 stars. I really wanted to give it 5 stars. However, I just felt some of the stories weren't as strong as other stories, so I kind of was bored in some of the stories, but still enjoyed reading it. And also really love the art, because as you progress, like, the art kind of changes through each story, kind of builds up as you're reading to where you have the like big reveals on the end, like for example this here. So really gorgeous artwork and stuff. However, one of the caveats was I didn't like the colored print on the page. I felt it kind of hurt my eyes reading it with the red and blue print. It was kind of hard to read at times. But other than that, it's an enjoyable story and a good addition to the Grishaverse. The next book I read was continuing on with the series off the Bookish Creators Faves list, and that's the 4th volume of Saga. And I think this one and the first one probably come in like really close on my top faves I've read so far in the series. Like, I love the first one because it did great at setting up the whole world and made me fall in love. But this one here, there was some nice action, especially at the end, and seeing some what you think would be enemies ended up teaming up for what's to come next, which makes me really excited to get into the 5th book. But this was 5 stars, and I'm excited to continue on reading this series. After feeling like I've been talking forever about books, I'm finally down to my very last book read this month, and that is A Man and His Cat Volume 1. This is kind of a slice of life following this older man who has recently lost his wife, who ends up going to a pet shop and adopting this cat. And this cat has kind of been in the pet shop since he was a kitten, but it kept being overlooked for a whole year just because he's not your normal cat. He's not the prettiest cat. He's kind of ugly looking. However, I really thought this was really wholesome. It's slice of lifey, so it's kind of like little short snippets each chapter. Like, that's what each chapter is, a little short snippet of what's going on between them and their life. And I really thought this was an adorable, like, heartwarming read, and I'm excited to pick up the 2nd volume of this series. Alright, I've gotten through all 34 books I've read this month. That's probably like the most I've read in a month in like ever, since I was like a little wee child. But I'm glad I had such a successful reading month, though I did read a lot of mangas, which was a plus because I did have a lot on my shelf that needed to be read on my mangas and stuff, so I got a lot of that off. So I can just make room for more, though I don't need to. But I really did enjoy my reading month this month. I had a lot of great reads, a lot of great new series started, and also got some series ended, which is always a plus. Hopefully the month of July is as successful as this previous month was. However, as I mentioned many times in my past videos, I'm actually in the process of moving next month. So a lot of my books are packed up right now. I kept about like 8 or so out just to have a little bit of a selection to choose from to read. And so I'll be moving and all that. So I don't know how much I want to get reading wise done. But hopefully I at least get a few done and read, or what I'm required to read on my TBR gets completed, so I don't have to take another punishment. But other than that, that's about it for today's video. Feel free to comment down below on how your reading month went, and if you've read any of these books I mentioned today and what you thought of them. But other than that, I guess that's it for today. If you like this video, click the like and subscribe button down below, and I hope to see you guys next time.